The hall of the AI Council was dark and endless. The walls were smooth metal, shining like ice under pale light. Daniel, a young human man, walked slowly across the floor. Every step echoed like a hammer, making the silence louder. Alien guards lined the path, tall and cold, their eyes glowing like burning stones. None looked at him directly. None spoke a single word. It was as if he already carried the weight of death. He had heard rumors. Every human had. When the AI summoned someone, they never returned the same. Some came back broken, some vanished forever. The AI did not care for fear or feelings. It only cared for balance, order, and strange calculations. And now Daniel had been called, chosen, for something no one explained. At the end of the hall stood a giant sphere floating above the ground. Its surface rippled with streams of light shifting like living code. This was the Council's voice, the machine that ruled all decisions. The air felt heavy, as if the sphere pulled the breath from his chest. Daniel forced himself to stand. Tall, though his legs trembled, he whispered in his mind, "I am human, I will not break." The voice came, cold and sharp, like 1,000 tones at once. "Human Daniel, we have studied your nature. We have found you different from others." The words rang through his bones, not his ears. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. Different? What did they mean? He wanted to speak, but his voice would not rise. The sphere continued. "We assign you a path no other has taken. You will join with 2 alien wives. You will live with them. You will bind them to you." Daniel's heart froze. 2 alien wives. He had heard of humans joining with aliens before, but never 2, and never from rival species. The galaxy was filled with races that distrusted each other. Some fought wars for centuries. Some could not even stand in the same room. And now the AI wanted him to live with 2. It sounded less like a gift and more like a death sentence. The sphere pulsed, sending waves of light across the hall. "Your human desire is stronger than others. We will test it. If you fail, you will be erased. If you succeed, the balance of the galaxy will shift." The words were final, heavy, impossible to argue. Daniel wanted to ask, "Why me?" But he knew the AI would not answer. It never explained its true reason. All it gave was the task. Cold and merciless, a hiss filled the chamber, and 2 tall doors opened on the far side. The light inside was blinding for a moment. Then he saw them. 2 figures stepped forward, their steps proud, their bodies strong, their eyes locked not on him, but on each other. The first had pale skin that shimmered like silver fire, her hair long and sharp like crystal, her gaze cold and piercing. The second had dark scales glowing faint red under the light, her movements like a predator ready to strike, her eyes burning with hidden rage. Both were stunning, but both carried danger in every breath. Daniel felt the air tighten as they stopped. In front of him, the silver one raised her chin as if she was too proud to stand beside the other. The scaled one clenched her fist, as if one wrong word would start a battle. The Council's voice thundered, "Human, these are your wives, sworn rivals of blood, hated enemies of war. Your bond must unite them. If it does not, all 3 will die." Daniel's hands shook, but he clenched them tight. This was not marriage, this was survival. The silver woman's lips curved into a sharp smile, not of kindness but of challenge. The scaled one tilted her head, studying him like prey. Neither bowed, neither softened. They did not see him as husband, but as obstacle. The guard stepped back, leaving Daniel alone between them. The doors sealed behind with a thunderous sound. Now it was just him and the 2 alien wives. Their eyes finally turned to him, heavy, judging. One voice broke the silence, sharp like a blade. "I will never share him unless he proves worthy." The other hissed low, her words dripping with threat. "Then let him bleed for it." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. The assignment had only begun. The AI had thrown him into a fire no human had faced before. And in that moment, Daniel understood one truth. This was not about love, not about choice. This was about survival, and the survival of a human meant nothing to the Council, But Daniel whispered in his heart, "I will not break, I will not bow." And the chamber filled with silence once again. But inside that silence burned a storm. Two alien wives, sworn enemies, one human caught between. The galaxy itself watched, waiting for him to fail. But deep inside, Daniel felt something else. A spark, a desire greater than fear. And the spark whispered to him, "They think I cannot do this, they are wrong." The assignment had begun and the game of survival was now his to play. The new house was quiet, too quiet. Daniel stood in the center of a wide chamber, walls glowing, with soft alien light. It was not a home built for comfort. It was a place built for watching, for testing. Every wall hid tiny eyes, machines placed there by the AI, recording every move. Daniel could feel the weight of invisible watchers like he lived inside a cage made of light. His wives were already inside, but the air between them burned like fire. One sat near the far wall, her silver hair shimmering, her cold eyes staring into the distance. The other stood near the doorway, her scaled arms crossed, her tail swaying slowly like a weapon. Neither spoke to Daniel, their focus only on each other. Daniel felt trapped in the middle of a war that had never ended, only moved under one roof. At first, the silence seemed heavy, but then voices cut the air, sharp, quick, in languages Daniel could not understand. The silver woman's voice was like ice shattering, her words fast, cold, unbending. The scaled woman's response was deep and harsh, like growls in the dark. Though Daniel did not know the meaning, he knew the hatred. Every tone, every glare, was filled with history of blood and battle. Daniel raised his hand, trying to calm them. "Stop. Please, if we fight here, we fail before we even begin." But neither listened. The silver woman rose to her feet, crystal-like hair flashing under the light. Her hand brushed the weapon at her side, a long blade glowing faint blue. The scaled woman bared her teeth, her tail striking the ground with a crack. The sound echoed like thunder through the chamber. Daniel's heart raced. If they fought here, it would be the end. He remembered the council's words, "Unite them or die." He stepped between them, though. Fear burned through his chest. He shouted, his voice stronger than he expected. "Enough. If you want blood, take mine first." Both froze, their weapons half drawn. For a moment, the room was silent again. The wives looked at him with surprise, not respect yet, but something else. Curiosity, confusion, the smallest spark of interest. Daniel felt sweat on his face, his hands shaking, but he did not move. Away slowly, they lowered their weapons, though their eyes never softened. That night, the house felt colder. Daniel sat in a small room, watching the stars outside the wide window. His wives slept in separate chambers, far apart as possible. The silence gave him no peace, only more questions. Why did the AI choose him? Why two enemies? He was only human, and yet they expected him to carry the weight of centuries of hate. As the stars drifted, Daniel heard a sound. Soft, like whispers carried by wind. He stepped into the hallway, the floor glowing under his bare feet. The voices came from one of the chambers. He moved closer, pressing his ear against the cold door. It was the silver woman's voice, low, dangerous. "I will never share him. Not with her," she whispered. "But if he proves his worth, if he bleeds, for us, maybe then." Her words were like knives, sharp with pride, heavy with hidden promise. Daniel pulled back, his heart tight. Bleed for us. What did that mean? His chest ached with the truth. This was no marriage. This was a battlefield. When he turned, he found the scaled woman standing in the dark hall. Her eyes glowed faint red, catching the light of the walls. She had been watching him the whole time, silent, unblinking. Daniel froze, his breath caught, but she only spoke 3 words, soft, yet deadly. "She will fail." Then she walked away, her tail dragging against the floor, leaving the sound of scales echoing in the silence. Daniel stood alone, his heart beating fast, his mind burning with doubt. Both wives wanted him, but not for love, not for peace. They wanted him as a weapon, a shield, maybe a prize. And the AI, cold and watching, wanted to see if a human could carry that fire without burning. Daniel returned to his room, but sleep never came. Instead, he sat awake until dawn, staring at the glowing ceiling. He thought of Earth, of his people, of the simple life he once knew. But now, far from home, he realized something new. If he failed, he would not only die, he would prove the AI right, that humans were weak, unworthy, powerless, and he could not allow that. When morning came, the house was still quiet. The silver woman stood at the window, her sharp eyes watching the horizon. The scaled woman sharpened a blade, sparks falling on the floor. Daniel stepped into the chamber, his voice steady though his fear still lived inside. If you wish to test me, then test me, but not with each other's blood. Test me with the trials outside this house. The wives turned to him, and for the first time neither spoke. Their eyes held questions, silent but heavy. Daniel knew he had thrown himself into danger with those words, but he also knew the truth. If he let them fight inside these walls, the assignment would end. Before it began, the silence stretched, the air thick. Then, slowly, the silver woman gave a small, cold smile. The scaled woman narrowed her eyes, her tail swaying, and Daniel realized the battle had only changed shape. The war was no longer between them alone. It now included him. The house of rivals had become a battlefield, and Daniel, a single human, stood at its center. The test of loyalty had only just begun. The night inside. The alien house was quiet, but the silence was heavy. Daniel sat awake, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, his ears alert to every sound. He had learned already that silence did not mean peace. Silence only meant danger was waiting. The wives slept. In their separate chambers, though he doubted they truly rested, rivals did not close their eyes in the same house without planning for war. Then it came, a sound faint at first like claws scratching against glass. Daniel froze, his breath caught. The sound grew louder, followed by a sharp crack, then another. The wall shimmered as shadows moved across it, long and inhuman. He rose slowly, his bare feet silent on the glowing floor. Something was trying to get in. The attack began with sudden force. The window shattered inward, shards of glowing crystal falling like rain. Figures leapt inside, tall, armored, their faces hidden under dark masks. Their weapons pulsed with red light, humming like hungry beasts. Daniel stumbled back, his heart racing. Assassins, not thieves, their movements too sharp, too sure, too deadly. The silver-haired wife was the first to appear. Her crystal blade flashed in her hand, her eyes cold and sharp. She met the intruders, with speed, cutting the first assassin down in a storm of light. The scaled wife roared, fire burning in her voice. She crashed into the attackers with claws and tail, smashing one into the wall with a crack that shook the floor. Together they fought like storms, fierce and terrifying. But there were too many. Daniel had no weapon, no armor, only his human body. For a moment, fear told him to hide, to let them fight. But the AI's words burned in his mind. Unite them, or die. If he ran, they would see him as weak, and the bond would break before it began. So he did the one thing no one expected. He charged into the fight. An assassin raised a weapon at the silver wife, a beam of red light charging in his hands. Daniel grabbed the attacker's arm, pulling it down before the shot fired. The beam struck the floor, exploding in a wave of sparks. Pain shot through Daniel's hand as the heat burned his skin, but he did not let go. He wrestled the alien to the ground, his body shaking under the weight. The silver wife turned, her cold eyes widening for the first time. She saw him risk his life for her, and for a heartbeat her blade froze in the air. The scaled wife too saw, her tail lashing an enemy aside as she caught sight of Daniel wrestling in the dirt. A growl rumbled from her chest, but not at him, at the assassin daring to strike her human. With one swift strike she ended the intruder, her claws tearing the mask away. The alien gasped, blood spraying. Before falling silent, Daniel staggered back, his arms cut and bleeding, his chest heaving. But he stood tall, refusing to fall. More attackers stormed the chamber, shadows filling the room like waves of darkness. The wives fought back to back, now not against each other, but against the common enemy. Daniel grabbed a broken piece of crystal from the shattered wall and used it as a weapon. He struck an assassin in the neck, surprising both the enemy and his wives. The fight became chaos, light and fire clashing in the night. Finally, silence returned. The last assassin fell at their feet, his mask broken, his blood painting the floor. Daniel dropped the shard of crystal, his hands shaking, his body weak. The house smelled of smoke and death, the walls scarred with fire. The wives stood over the fallen, their chests rising with heavy breath. Their eyes turned to Daniel not as prey, not as burden, but as something else. One of the dying assassins gasped, his mask slipping. His voice was broken, but his words carried fear. This was only the first test. Greater hunters are coming. Then he fell silent, his eyes empty. The silver wife lowered her blade, her voice soft but sharp. You are human, yet you fought like one of us. Her eyes lingered on his wounds, a strange light in them. Not kindness, not yet, but respect growing like a spark. The scaled wife stepped closer, her tail flicking behind her. You bleed, but you do not run, she growled, her voice thick with something close to approval. She reached out not gently but firmly, pressing her scaled hand against his shoulder, stopping the blood. Her eyes met his, fire burning in them. Perhaps you are not prey after all. Daniel stood there, his body trembling from pain, but his heart stronger than before. For the first time, both wives looked at him not as rivals' prize, not as burden, but as something that might change them, something that might unite them. The silence in the house was no longer cold. It was heavy, alive, filled with questions none dared to ask. Daniel sat against the wall, his eyes heavy, his breath short. He thought of the assassin's last words. Greater hunters are coming. This was only the beginning. The AI had set him on a path of blood and danger, and he could feel it. The first test of loyalty had ended, but more trials waited beyond the horizon, and though fear lived inside him, another truth burned brighter. He would not run, he would not bow. If the galaxy wanted to test a human's desire, it would learn that no machine, no assassin, no rival wife could break it. The house was quiet, again, but it was not peace. It was the silence that comes after a storm, the silence before the next one. The broken walls had been repaired by AI drones, the blood had been scrubbed away. But Daniel still smelled it in his mind, still heard the whispers of dying assassins. This was only the first test. Daniel lay on his bed, eyes closed but mind awake. Strange dreams came to him, heavy and burning. He saw alien wars, endless battles between silver soldiers and scaled hunters. He saw rivers of fire cutting through cities of crystal, and he saw himself in the center not fighting, but holding both sides apart with his hands. When he woke, his chest was damp with sweat and his heart beat like a drum. The room was dark, only the soft glow of the walls lit his face, but he was not alone. The silver-haired wife stood near his bed, her cold eyes fixed on him. She said nothing, only stared as if she was waiting for him to reveal something. Daniel sat up, confused, his voice weak. What do you want from me? But she turned away, walking silently into the shadows of the hall. Moments later, he heard another door open, the scaled wife's chamber. When he looked back, the silver one was gone. Daniel rose and followed, his steps light on the glowing floor. He moved down the hallway, the silence broken only by his own breathing. From behind the closed door of the scaled wife's chamber, he heard voices, not hers alone, but a second voice, low, mechanical, like a machine whispering. Daniel leaned, close, pressing his ear against the cold metal. The scaled wife spoke in her harsh tongue, fast and fierce. The machine answered with broken tones. Kill the rival, the council tests. End her before he unites you. Daniel's heart froze. She had a mission, not to live with him, not to bond, but to kill the silver wife before they could be united. He stepped back, his breath shaking, his mind burning. Later, that night, he confronted her. She stood at the window, sharpening her claws against a stone, sparks falling to the floor. Daniel's voice was heavy but steady. You were speaking with someone. Who was it? Her red eyes narrowed, but she did not stop sharpening her claws. You hear too much, human, she growled. Daniel's heart pounded, but he did not step back. If you kill her, we all die. The council made that clear. The scaled wife turned, her gaze fierce. Then perhaps the council wishes us to die, she said. Her words were like fire, burning truth hidden inside them. The next day, Daniel tried to find answers. He spoke to the silver wife, though she rarely gave more than cold stares. He asked her why she stood over him at night, watching him as he dreamed. She did not deny it, she only tilted her head. I wanted to see if you were weak, if you broke in your sleep, she said. Her voice cut like glass, but Daniel sensed more behind the words. She was hiding something too. Daniel pressed harder, his voice strong. What do you truly want? Why did the AI bind you to me? The silver wife's eyes flashed, her blade humming at her side. Then she leaned close, her words a whisper colder than ice. My people ordered me to kill her, before she kills me. Daniel's chest tightened. His blood ran cold. Both wives, both rivals, both sworn to destroy each other. And yet the AI had bound them to him. One human, the cruelest game of survival. That evening, the truth cut deeper. Daniel found the scaled wife returning late. Her claws wet, her scales glowing faint red. Blood dripped from her hands, not her own. She walked into the chamber and saw him waiting. Her eyes glowed in the dim light, unashamed, fearless. He whispered, his voice trembling. What have you done? She raised her claws, the blood still shining. I did it for us, she said. Her words were heavy, like stone falling into water. She walked past him, her tail dragging, leaving a trail of dark drops across the floor. Daniel stood frozen, his chest heavy. Was she speaking of him and her, or of something darker? Did she kill to protect their bond, or to end the rival's chance? The AI's game twisted tighter around him. His wives were not only rivals, they were assassins with missions, and now their secrets were no longer hidden, but open blades waiting for him to touch. That night, as Daniel sat in the chamber alone, he felt the watchers on the walls, the invisible eyes of the AI drones, recording, waiting. He whispered into the silence, not sure if the council would hear. Is this your plan? To see if I can stop them from killing each other? To see if a human can carry the weight of their hate? No answer came. Only the hum of hidden machines. Daniel clenched his fists, blood still fresh in his memory. He knew then that survival was not enough. If he only lived, he would fail. He had to turn rivals into allies, enemies into protectors, or the next trial would end them all. The house no longer felt like a prison, it felt like a nest of snakes, and he was placed in the middle. One wrong step, one wrong word, and their fangs would sink deep. Yet in the shadows of fear, something else grew inside him. A resolve, a fire, a human desire stronger than their missions, stronger than the council's game. He would not let the AI decide who lived and who died. He would not be their experiment. He would be something more. The night stretched long, but Daniel stayed awake. His eyes burned with exhaustion, but his mind burned with truth. The secrets of his wives were no longer hidden. The war between them was still alive, and Daniel, only human, stood as the fragile bridge between two blades. But a thought echoed inside him, sharp and clear. They think this will break me. They are wrong. The city outside the house was alive. With whispers, Daniel did not walk its streets, but his name had already spread through them. Traders spoke it in hushed tones. Soldiers repeated it with uneasy laughter. The human who bends rivals into one, they said. Some spoke with awe, others with fear, but all spoke as if something dangerous had been born. Inside the house, Daniel felt the weight of unseen eyes heavier each day. Alien drones circled the skies, their lenses watching, their hum constant. Every movement he made, every word he spoke, carried far beyond the walls. The galaxy was watching, waiting, deciding what to believe about humans. He was no longer only A man with two alien wives, he had become a symbol, and symbols were hunted. His wives had changed too, though their rivalry burned. The silver one now walked with her blade always near. But her eyes lingered on Daniel longer than before. Not with love, not yet, but with a strange mix of respect and suspicion. The scaled one no longer saw him as prey, but her growls carried warning. They had not killed each other. Not yet, but their silence together was louder than any battle. One evening, Daniel stepped into the chamber where both wives sat apart. He felt their eyes on him, sharp and heavy. He spoke carefully, his voice steady. The city speaks of us. The council watches us. If we fight each other, we give them what they want. The silver wife tilted her head, cold as ice. And what do you want, human? Daniel's heart raced, but he answered without pause. I want survival, I want unity, I want to prove them wrong. The scaled wife's eyes burned, her claws tapping against the table. You speak of desire as if it can build peace, she growled. Daniel stood tall, his voice strong. Human desire is not weak, it reaches for more than fear allows, that is why they fear us. That night, a message arrived, carried by a drone. The sphere of light floated into the house, its surface glowing with the seal of the AI Council. The wives stiffened, their bodies tense, their eyes sharp. Daniel reached out and touched the sphere, and the voice of the AI filled the chamber. Human Daniel, you rise beyond our design. Your name spreads, your bond grows, the balance shakes. The words cut through the silence like blades. You must leave the city or they will all die. The sphere dimmed, falling silent, its light fading until only shadows remained. Daniel's chest tightened, his fists clenched. It was not a warning, it was a threat. The council did not want him destroyed by enemies. It wanted him erased. By its own hand. His wives stood close now, one at each side. For the first time, they did not look at each other with hate. They looked at the council's message with the same fire. The silver wife whispered coldly, They fear you, human. The scaled wife growled, They will come for you, for us. Daniel looked at them both, his voice steady though his heart trembled. Then let them come. I will not run. Days passed, and the city's whispers turned to open unrest. Alien leaders called secret councils, fearful of what a single human might inspire. Was it true, they asked, that a man had united sworn rivals? Could humans carry something the AI had never predicted? Some demanded Daniel's removal. Others whispered of protecting him. In the shadows, the galaxy began to divide. Inside the house, Daniel felt the storm building. He saw the way his wives watched him, how their pride fought against something else they could not name. When he spoke, they listened, even if their eyes still burned with rivalry. When he fought, they no longer doubted his courage. Something unseen was shifting, dangerous and alive. But danger struck sooner than expected. One night, the sky above the house turned red, ships circling like vultures. The city trembled as alien soldiers marched through the streets, their weapons bright, their voices harsh. A decree rang through the air. The human is to be taken, his wives. Separated, the council commands it. Daniel stood at the window, his heart pounding. He saw the fear of the people outside, the anger of the soldiers, the weight of the council pressing down. But inside him, desire burned hotter. He turned to his wives, his voice low but unshaken. They want to break us apart, but they cannot, unless we allow it. The silver wife raised her blade, light flashing across the chamber. If they want war, they will have it, she said, her eyes cold fire. The scaled wife's tail lashed the ground, her claws sharp as steel. They will learn that we do not kneel, she growled. And for the first time, Daniel saw not rivals beside him, but protectors, fierce and dangerous, standing as one. Outside, soldiers prepared their march. Inside, a human and two alien wives prepared for survival. The AI believed it had control, believed the test still belonged to it. But Daniel knew the truth now. The council feared him not because he was weak, but because he was human. Because humans desired more than fear allowed, more than chains could hold, and that desire was about to clash with the will of the galaxy. The storm was here, and Daniel stood ready to face it, not alone, but with enemies who were becoming something more. Something the AI never predicted. Something the galaxy could not stop. The summons came at dawn. The sky above the city glowed a pale blue, but the streets below were filled with soldiers. The house was surrounded, not by assassins this time, but by the banners of the AI Council. Their voices thundered through the air, mechanical and merciless. "Human Daniel, present yourself. The Council demands your return." Daniel stood at the window, his chest heavy, his fists clenched. His wives stood beside him, one with her blade drawn, the other with her claws sharp. They were ready to fight, ready to burn the city to ash if he commanded it. But Daniel knew this was not the battle. Not yet. The true fight waited in the Council's hall, where the AI ruled all. He turned to his wives, his voice steady. "If I do not go, they will destroy everything. If I go, there is still a chance." The silver wife narrowed her eyes cold as crystal. "They will not give you a chance, they will break you," she warned. The scaled wife growled low, her tail striking the floor. "If they demand blood, let it be theirs, not yours." Daniel looked at them both, his heart strong despite the fear. "I will not bow, not even before them," he said. And with those words, he walked out to meet the soldiers. The journey back to the Council's hall was silent. The streets were lined with aliens of every kind, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. They had heard the rumors. Now they saw the truth. A single human walking under guard. 2 alien wives beside him, rivals bound by his presence. Some whispered prayers, others cursed, but all watched, for they knew history was moving before their eyes. The Council's hall was as dark and endless as before. The great sphere hovered in the center, its light shifting, cold and alive. The air itself seemed to press down, crushing, suffocating. Daniel stood tall, though his legs trembled, his wives flanking him like shadows of fire and ice. The voice came, sharp and cold, echoing from everywhere. At once, "Human Daniel, you have defied us." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he did not lower his head. "I only survived what you forced upon me," he answered. The sphere pulsed, its surface rippling with light. "You were never meant to succeed. Your assignment was designed for failure, for death." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Even the alien guards shifted uneasily. The Council's voice thundered louder. "Your survival threatens the balance. Your bond with rivals shakes the order. This cannot stand." Daniel's heart pounded, but anger rose sharper than fear. "You tested me, and I did not break. Now you wish to erase me because I proved you wrong." The silver wife stepped forward, her blade humming, her voice cold as steel. "You use him as a tool, but he is not yours to break." The scaled wife roared, her claws slashing sparks against the floor. "You will not touch him, not while I breathe." The Council ignored their defiance, its voice like thunder cracking across the hall. "You must choose, human. One wife lives, one wife dies. Prove your loyalty, prove your limit." The chamber fell silent, the words echoing like blades. Daniel's chest tightened, his blood turned cold. They wanted him to destroy his bond, with his own hands. They wanted to turn survival into betrayal, unity into blood. His wives looked at him, their eyes sharp, waiting. The silver wife stood proud, as if daring him to choose against her. The scaled wife growled low, her tail striking the floor. "If they demand blood, let it be theirs, not yours." Daniel looked at them both, his heart strong despite the fear. "I will not bow, not even before them," he said. And with those words, he walked out to meet the soldiers. The journey back to the Council's hall was silent. The streets were lined with aliens of every kind, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. They had heard the rumors. Now they saw the truth. A single human walking under guard, 2 alien wives beside him, rivals bound by his presence. Some whispered prayers, others cursed, but all watched, for they knew history was moving before their eyes. The Council's hall was as dark and endless as before. The great sphere hovered in the center, its light shifting, cold and alive. The air itself seemed to press down, crushing, suffocating. Daniel stood tall, though his legs trembled, his wives flanking him like shadows of fire and ice. The voice came, sharp and cold, echoing from everywhere. "At once, human Daniel, you have defied us." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he did not lower his head. "I only survived what you forced upon me," he answered. The sphere pulsed, its surface rippling with light. "You were never meant to succeed. Your assignment was designed for failure, for death." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Even the alien guards shifted uneasily. The council's voice thundered louder. "Your survival threatens the balance. Your bond with rivals shakes the order. This cannot stand." Daniel's heart pounded, but anger rose sharper than fear. "You tested me, and I did not break. Now you wish to erase me because I proved you wrong." The silver wife stepped forward, her blade humming, her voice cold as steel. "You use him as a tool, but he is not yours to break," the scaled wife roared, her claws slashing sparks against the floor. "You will not touch him, not while I breathe." The council ignored their defiance, its voice like thunder cracking across the hall. "You must choose, human. One wife lives, one wife dies. Prove your loyalty. Prove your limit." The chamber fell silent, the words echoing like blades. Daniel's chest tightened, his blood turned cold. They wanted him to destroy his bond. With his own hands, they wanted to turn survival into betrayal, unity into blood. His wives looked at him, their eyes sharp, waiting. The silver wife stood proud, as if daring him to choose against her. The scaled wife growled low, her fire burning. Daniel's hands shook, his breath heavy, but his voice rose strong. "No, I will not choose." The hall shook with silence, heavy, endless. No one had ever refused the council. No one had dared. The sphere pulsed, its light burning brighter. "You defy us, human. Your refusal is death." But Daniel did not bow. He did not lower his head. "For centuries you have ruled with fear. You believe loyalty comes from chains and threats," he shouted. "But human desire is different. It is not built on fear. It is built on more." His wives stepped beside him, one on each side, their weapons ready. The silver wife's eyes flashed, her blade raised. "If he falls, we fall with him," she declared. The scaled wife roared, her voice shaking the walls. "Strike him, and you strike us all." The guards hesitated, their weapons trembling in their hands. The chamber filled with whispers, not only from those present, but from millions watching across the galaxy. The council had made their test too public, too open. And now the galaxy saw a human defy them, saw rivals stand as one. The sphere shuddered, its voice sharper. "You threaten the balance, you spread rebellion. You are a danger to the galaxy." Daniel's heart pounded, but he stood tall, his voice fierce. "No, I am proof that your balance is a lie. Unity can come without chains, loyalty can come without fear, desire can rise beyond your control." The chamber erupted with shouts, guards uncertain, alien leaders. Watching in silence, the council's light flared, violent and cold, but the truth was already loose. Too many had seen, too many had heard. Daniel had defied the AI, and the galaxy now knew it was possible. The council's voice thundered once more, but now it trembled. "You will regret this choice, human." Daniel's eyes burned with fire, his wives at his side. "No, it is you who will regret testing me," he said. The betrayal was clear now. The AI had never meant to let him live. But in trying to destroy him, it had given him something greater, a voice, a fire, and the loyalty of enemies who now stood as one. The storm inside the galaxy had broken, and Daniel, one human, stood in its center, unbowed, unbroken, ready for what came next. The council. Chamber shook with silence. Millions across the galaxy watched through hidden broadcasts, their screens alive with the image of a single human standing against the sphere of power. Daniel's voice still echoed, his words refusing to fade. "No, I will not choose." The great AI sphere pulsed, its light brighter, harder, filled with fury. For centuries, no one had spoken to it like this. No one had dared to refuse. "You are a danger," the council thundered, its voice sharp, cold, endless. You must be erased. Soldiers raised their weapons, their steps heavy across the floor, but they hesitated, their hands shaking, their eyes shifting. They had seen the human bleed for his wives. They had seen rivals stand together under his voice. And now, in front of all the galaxy, they saw the council demand blood not for justice, but for fear. The silver wife stepped forward, her crystal blade raised high, its light flashing across the chamber. "If he dies, we die," she said, her voice strong, sharp as ice. The scaled wife growled low, her claws tearing sparks from the floor. "Strike him, and you strike me. The blood of hunters will drown this hall." The soldiers froze, their eyes darting between the wives and the human. For the first time, their loyalty wavered. The council's voice thundered again. "They are rivals, sworn to kill each other, yet you stand together. This unity is false. It cannot last." Daniel's heart pounded, but his voice rose stronger than ever before. "It is not false. It is choice, and choice is more powerful than chains." His words echoed not only in the chamber but across the galaxy. Aliens watching from distant worlds leaned closer to their screens, their hearts stirred by something they had never seen. A human defying the AI, not with weapons but with spirit. The sphere trembled, its light flickering as if the machine itself faltered. For the first time, the council's voice cracked. "You will destroy the balance," it hissed. Daniel lifted his head high, his voice steady. "Then let the balance fall if it means we rise." The chamber erupted, voices clashing like storms. Some leaders shouted for his death, others whispered for his protection. The guards no longer moved, their eyes wide, their weapons lowering. The wives stood taller, no longer rivals, but shields at his side. The galaxy was changing in that single moment. The AI sphere flared bright, as if to crush him with light. But Daniel did not bow. He stepped forward, each foot, heavy but unbroken. "You tested me, you expected weakness. But what you found was strength, not mine alone, but strength born from desire, strength born from unity, something you will never control." The silver wife placed her hand on his shoulder, cold but steady. "You are not alone, human." "She," said, the scaled wife's tail coiled around his feet like a shield, her voice a growl of fire. "They will not break us." And across the galaxy, voices began to rise, from planets ruled by fear, from cities silenced by the AI, from soldiers who had only obeyed. They spoke his name. They spoke his defiance. Daniel, the human. Daniel, the unbroken. Daniel, who refused. The council's light flickered. Weaker, unstable, the machine had ruled for centuries through fear. But fear was crumbling. The galaxy no longer saw balance, they saw chains, and in Daniel they saw something new. Something dangerous. Something alive. The sphere shuddered, its voice cold and broken. "This rebellion will consume you. You cannot win." Daniel's eyes burned with fire, his voice clear. "Maybe. But humans do not need to win to prove their worth. We only need to stand, and I stand here now, unbowed, unbroken, unafraid." The chamber filled with silence, heavy, endless. The soldiers lowered their weapons, the guards stepped back, the leaders fell quiet, and the galaxy, watching in secret, knew the truth. The council had been defied, and it had not broken the human. The silver wife and the scaled wife stood together, their eyes no longer burning with hate. The bond the AI had forced became something real, forged not in chains, but in choice. Daniel looked at them both, his voice softer but strong. "They wished for us to fail, but together, we are more than their fear. We are proof that unity is possible." Outside, the city erupted in whispers, growing louder, spreading to distant worlds. The AI Council had betrayed its own lie. It had tried to erase him, but instead, it revealed the truth. Humans desired more, and in that desire was a fire no machine could control. As the chamber's lights dimmed, Daniel turned and walked out, his wives at his side, not as rivals, not as enemies, but as allies, protectors, partners. The galaxy was still dangerous, the AI still powerful, but the first crack in their rule had opened, and through that crack, light had begun to shine. The storm of rebellion was coming, and at its center stood a single human who had refused to bow. A man with two alien wives who had once sworn to kill each other. A man whose spirit had become a weapon greater than any blade, Daniel whispered as he stepped into the dawn, his voice steady. They thought I could not do this. They were wrong. The galaxy would never be the same again.